Welcome back to the Mayor's Table. This is our second episode of 2019. With me today is special guest, City Manager Rob Mays. Rob, welcome.
Thank you. Good to be here.
Absolutely. We want to make sure we provide information in what 2019 is going to look like, what our citizens can anticipate. Last episode, we really focused on what happened in 2018, and 2019's got a different spin to it. There's some excitement in the air of opportunities that I believe are going to show themselves through a much more Farmington-centric approach to economic development. And I think if we lead off this conversation today, it needs to be with community transformation and economic diversification. And in 2018, your city council passed a tax of 0.25%, which is about, or is it eighth? 0.25%.
0.25%.
$4.4 million that will be utilized towards economic development and community transformation, and what that all really means, really. I mean, that's the big question. I'm going to give you an opportunity to kind of talk about kind of how the city is approaching what that fund looks like and how we go through that process. But I want our viewers to understand economic diversification is expensive. I think what I have seen in my time as an elected official is that there's not a lot of funding that's been put into certainly the maybe the regional type economic diversification efforts. And this council, after hearing from all of this community and a call to say, who are we going to be beyond oil and gas, when we recognize that oil and gas industry is not the same that it was 10 years ago, when we recognize that there are jobs that potentially can be lost at our coal-fired power plants and coal mine, how do we provide some other economic opportunities for companies, for entrepreneurs, for people to relocate here? And frankly, Rob, I didn't think there was any possibility of us doing this if we didn't put our money where our mouth was. And I believe the community was fully behind this. I mean, just an incredible example when we had the meetings regarding the CTED fund, as we talk about it, the tax, almost zero opposition to us taking that big swing and saying, look, we're going to do the best thing that we can do. We're going to try and put this money where it would be best served to entice economic development.
Well, as you mentioned, it really boiled down to a funding issue. Previous leadership, city and county and other partners had transformed the approach to economic development. About over the last 10 years, more money, time, and effort have been put into economic development and diversification than any other time in our history. And a great plan was laid where market segments were identified, where we could go out and try to recruit and could diversify our economy and bring jobs. But the fact is that the total funding from all of the government sources and the private sector was about $380,000 for that. City of Farmington alone was investing double what any other entity was investing, and we just weren't going to get it done with that type of investment. And so you and the council stepped up and said, well, we've got to put our money where our mouth is, and implemented that tax. And that 100% of that tax, $4.4 million a year, is being accounted for separately in a separate fund. It's not being commingled with the city general fund, and it is restricted and dedicated to a broad definition of economic transformation and economic diversification, which comes in all shapes and sizes.
Sure.
And so, from a standpoint of what are some of the first things we've done? Well, we began by creating our own Department of Economic Development, which is a one-person department. We have a certified economic development director that we've brought on staff because we didn't have that competency on our staff. And we also then became the first municipality in the state to have a Department of Outdoor Recreation Industry Initiative, ORI as it's called. And we created that department. It's also a one-person department, but we have a director, someone whose sole job is to focus on helping us determine how to invest in opportunities to bring outdoor recreation and outdoor recreation industry. Yeah. Mayor, people, when I first started hearing about this, I didn't understand the scope of it. Your listeners will be surprised to learn that there are 3 times as many people employed right now in the United States in the outdoor recreation industry than there are in all of oil and gas.
It is almost unbelievable.
It is unbelievable.
Yeah.
And in terms of the economic sector size, oil and gas and fuels is $304 billion industry. Outdoor recreation is an $890 million industry. So it just goes to show when you talk about the ability to not just hold on to the past, we love our past and don't want to forget our past, but we have to think about the future. Outdoor recreation is an area that all the things that we are weak in, we don't have big infrastructure, we don't have, we don't have a railroad, we're not going to be a place for mass manufacturing. But all those weaknesses are an asset when it comes to outdoor recreation.
Absolutely.
And that was that was an area that our regional economic development area was involved in identifying. Another one was retirement community. This is a perfect place to retire. Not only do we have an incredible environment and quality of life, perfect weather, no natural disasters. And another one was tourism, of course, has always been a top priority. Another one was location neutral. These are all parts of the economy of the future that this tax is designed to really, really focus in on.
I think it's kind of the opportune moment. The other day I saw a map of the United States, and it listed what your salary would need to be to afford rent in every state. And just north of us in Colorado, it was something around $100,000 a year to afford rent. And I think they were using like a home, family home of 3, 2-bath, that kind of thing. In New Mexico, it was only $54,000. So if I'm somebody who's on a fixed income, just speaking on the retirement component, and I'm looking for a place that is going to provide low cost, the amenities, and the natural beauty that is provided here in the Four Corners area, Farmington is a perfect location for retirees, and that's something that we are jumping into. Certainly through even the first meeting that we had for the CTED commission that has been kind of put together. The discussion initially is let's create this roadmap, and let's try and understand the things that we don't know about ourselves or the things that we've already assumed about ourselves. It's one thing to say we'd be a great place to retire, but how do we really drill down and get laser focused on how to attract retirees? And so one of the components of this new CTED movement is going to be some studies that I think, and none of this has been approved yet, but these are what we're talking about right now, is let's understand Farmington a little bit better. And so a retail market study is something we've discussed, a retirement community market study is something else that we've discussed, but I think you got to have these things in the forefront of any type of project moving forward because it tells you where you're at.
Yeah, and it tells you what gaps you have. It's an asset map to tell you what you have, and it's a gap map to show what you don't have. So early on, you're right, we're focusing on a lot of detailed planning now to make sure we invest the money well. So not only is there a citywide comprehensive plan going on, and you mentioned there's several other studies going on for projects that might be considered low-hanging fruit. The retail study, the retirement market study. We've got a study going on regarding development of Gateway Park.
Yes.
We've got the project going on regarding the project for the aerial adventures.
Well, and we've
Lake
had
Farmington and the river.
And the North Trail design.
North Trail design.
Yep.
So we're starting with low-hanging fruit, obviously finishing some of the things that were already started, completing the trail from one end to the other. Previous councils had allocated the money to buy all that property. So we're getting that constructed now. We're going to have soon the trail from one end of Farmington all the way to the other. That's a 50-year dream for this community.
Absolutely.
And the next step is to start talking about how do we get it connected to Aztec and how do we get connected from Durango from there.
Sure.
We're looking at things like building shade structures out at Farmington Lake. Talking about low-hanging fruit, putting adequate signage to point people to the things we already have is another major project that's rolling out right now.
Yeah, people have already probably started to see the wayfinding signs. Certainly they're on 64 as you come into town from Kirtland, and we want people to know what we have here, not just for those who are visiting, but it's got to be top of mind of people who live here. Then we can really start making it a component of ourselves. I do want to mention, just briefly, the importance of Tanya Stinson and the work that she's done at the CVB and this branding initiative that was begun 5 years ago, and how that really, to me, was the impetus of the future of Farmington. We had to define who we were outside of oil and gas, and when the term Jolt Your Journey came as our tagline, that was kind of controversial for a lot of people, but guess what? It's catching on, and it's working, and now we've got to be to the point to where if we tell people, come here and jolt your journey, we need to make sure that the assets and the experience that we're providing, that we can provide, not as a government, but as the businesses and the people inside the city, the restaurants, they are really truly jolting somebody's journey in a positive way.
Well, there was the intentional work, certainly, of the CVB and Tanya and her group, Four Corners Economic Development. And then really this grassroots movement that came out of these other areas of excitement, particularly the CVB work, the whole ORI initiative.
ORI initiative.
It grew up as a grassroots, still is in many ways a grassroots initiative of citizens that are helping to bring to light the opportunities that are here and the resources. And now we're just getting organized about that so that we can start to tell our story better to the rest of the world.
Sure. This is a great opportunity for me to kind of remind our viewers that there are some additional public meetings that are going to be coming up. We've already had 2 public meetings regarding aerial adventures, and that would be zip lining or challenge courses, those things at Farmington Lake. And we're also reviewing the possibility of Berg Park East of having that. So the Marquee Trail study. So we have got a consultant group working for us called Public Land Solution. They're having a public meeting February 7th from 6 to 8 p.m. at the Civic Center to discuss how to tie together the regional assets, broader than just in Farmington, for a Marquee OHV trail, which I would assume at some point will also include mountain biking trail. But we have a niche with OHV that we want to make sure we're taking advantage of, and that Public Land Solutions Group agreed with that. Also, if you're looking at opening a business here that deals with outdoor recreation, the City of Farmington is putting on a base camp for individuals interested in that. It's February 1st through 2nd. You can check out the City of Farmington Facebook page or website for more information on that. But this is, I mean, all these things, we see this as opportunities for jobs. We see this as opportunities for new people to move here. We see this as opportunities for tourism. We already are a center point for retail and business, and if we can find ways to keep people coming and staying more nights, more heads in beds, trying to relocate here as a place for them to live in Farmington, they can work in Durango, work in other places around the area, but enjoy the true quality of life that this city offers. This is where we're trying to put this best foot forward, and our money where our mouth is.
So another thing that our Economic Development Department is doing that this fund would potentially have the ability to finance is most communities, when they're able to entice a business to come here and create new jobs, involves some level of incentives.
Right.
Incentives are a difficult area and they're controversial and they're challenging. You're going to be very careful and prudent how you use them, but partnerships, public-private partnerships related to building infrastructure, doing things that allow companies to come here and be successful and create jobs is important, and we've got to be in that game. We're just giving lip service if we're not, and so that's another potential use for some of this money. And as you know, we didn't just call it, we called it community transformation. So what does that look like? It's not just about building nice stuff, it's about solving some of our social and some of our problems that we continually have heard from our citizens are holding us back. For some of the things we've already done, we've spent money to move the roof. That's our inebriate wet shelter, to move it out of downtown.
Great point.
Those are actual things, tangible things that people have been asking to be done that cost money. Another one is we are in the process of developing a brand new police security presence, a new unit for our parks and our downtown and our trail system. Some of the input, it's a constant problem, and everywhere deals with homelessness and everywhere deals with those kinds of challenges. But if we're going to truly transform this community to be a place that the private sector wants to be and wants to invest in, we've got these beautiful trails and downtown and parks. They've got to be safe.
Yes, sir.
And so that costs money. And so we are in the process of, we need a security presence on when you're downtown, you need to see security. And so that's a unit that's being developed and will be implemented in the next year. Council's already approved it conceptually, and police department is working hard to develop, and we'll be rolling that out. Our vision is that when you come downtown, you'll feel safe. When you're walking our trails, you'll see a uniform presence and you'll feel safe.
Right.
And that's a huge goal.
Excellent. One of the other things that we have done already in 2018 with the anticipated funds that are coming through this 1/4% tax is the removal of some blight, some property acquisitions. The property on Miller and Pinion, which had become just a disaster and a danger to society, really, that was an important move by council to say, look, we see this property, it's strategically placed near the river, it could be a component of future development of things that we can help direct development on, and It gives us the ability to remove these dilapidated buildings that were a danger to the firefighters, a danger to people
Yep.
who decided to try and live in there. So I think that was a really smart move. And something that shows, I think, again, to the community that this council is dedicated to this true community transformation. And we believe that there's other properties that are on this list that we now may have the ability and funding available to go in and fix up as well, so to speak.
Yeah, we can't buy every piece of property in town, obviously, but there are property that are so strategic or has become such a source of blight and public safety nuisance that we need to take control of it, get it cleaned up, and then try to find a way to creatively get it back out into the private sector to create jobs. And that's
Absolutely.
our goal with these properties. But that's absolutely right. And we've had some, and the goal is when the private sector sees the public sector going first and investing, that the private sector will come alongside and risk their capital.
Well,
and that's where the real jobs come.
And this is not a formula that's brand new. I mean,
No.
we're not trying to recreate the wheel here. We've seen it work in other communities. We believe we have the possibility of making it work here. And certainly everything I'm reading about things that are going on around this country in communities that are surrounded by government land, public land. I mean, let's be honest. There's not a whole lot of opportunity for private groups to expand here because we are surrounded by federal government land. Is the importance of utilizing it for outdoor recreation and making sure that that land is available for people to explore and experience the things that we know our areas can expand
Well,
here.
and you said earlier, it's economic development is not, it's an expensive process, but it's also a long-term process. And when people go places like Grand Junction or other places, they come back and say, well, why can't we do that? Or why aren't we like that? And these other places that have really capitalized on the sense of place
Yes.
and quality of life for their
Placemaking.
placemaking. They started decades ago.
Mm-hmm.
And so we have much to be proud of from the past here. So many things. This is a great place to live right now. But if we're going to truly be a place that is noticed and that people come here to choose, this is going to be a place they're going to come invest their dollars to manufacture their widget or their tourism company or their, we've got to shore up these other areas and prove we're serious about it.
Absolutely. Well, we're coming up on time here, but I think there's a call to action out there for our community, for entrepreneurs or people who are interested in really getting into this game. Take advantage of the base camp and to learn where those businesses are, what businesses we're looking for that we need here in our city in order to really propel this initiative forward. It's going to take private investment to make this community grow the way that we believe it can. Anything else? I mean, there's a lot we can talk about going into 2019.
No, so I think a good overview and kind of a snapshot of the vision.
Awesome. Well, stay tuned for more information on the Mayor's Table. Of course, always reach out to us, any of your elected officials. We are available to you, our constituents, for ideas, concerns, ways that we can improve this city. But we have a beautiful city, Rob, and it's something to be proud of for everybody out there. So we look forward to speaking with you next time right here on the Mayor's Table.